Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast, where we explore the power of mindfulness, mental health, and personal transformation. Today, we are joined by an incredibly accomplished guest, Dr. Michelle Maidenberg, a private practitioner from Harrison, New York, who co founded the nonprofit Through My Eyes and serves as clinical director. With over 30 years of clinical experience and expertise in behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, mindfulness, and more, she's here to share how mindfulness and emotional empowerment can help us overcome obstacles in our lives. She's also a TED Talk speaker, an award winning author, and an adjunct faculty member at NYU, bringing a wealth of knowledge to today's conversation. So, listeners, let's get ready and dive deep into this discussion. So, Dr. Michelle, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor having you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So, you have had an extraordinary career co founding Through My Eyes to help individuals leave video legacies. What inspired you to start this nonprofit, and how has it impacted those you have served?
So, great question. I started Through My Eyes about 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago. And I have done over 300 videotapes thus far.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's many. So the purpose of it, I had a friend who was 36 years old at the time, had a 9-year-old daughter, and she had her second bout of breast cancer, unfortunately. And, which was terminal. It spread, it metastasized and spread to all of her vital organs. And she, because of my training and background, she approached me, and wanted to record a video for her daughter, but didn't know what questions she should answer.
Okay.
So she consulted with me and I spoke with her about it. And at the time, she was going to a very premier hospital in New York City, and there wasn't, any feasibility to videotape. And I did contact the hospital, and they informed me that that if she wanted to videotape, that they would need to contact the person. It was very costly. It would need to be done at the hospital, and she would need to speak directly into the camera on her own. And because of all of those reasons, I decided to start this nonprofit. I felt like somebody who's who's going through an illness is incurring, such financial burden that they don't need this additionally to be burdened with. Number two, I found that it should be done in the privacy of their own home or wherever they felt comfortable, creating this video legacy. And then I also felt that it should be, led by a licensed mental health professional who could be very integral and helpful to ask pertinent questions relative to the developmental stage of their child, and also provide support, while they're going through the process. So for all those reasons, I decided to do this. And I could tell you from my experience, it's been so incredibly helpful and therapeutic for, the person themselves and their family members. And they profusely thank me, for doing it. They always tell me like, oh, if we didn't have this opportunity, we never would have looked to do it on our own. They never would have known which questions, to ask or to address. And I also I put together a list of over 200 questions.
Wow.
So I customized the questionnaire based on the person's needs. So they have an opportunity to give feedback on what they want to respond to. So they're really very vital part of the process, which is nice because they feel very empowered, in that realm.
It does. It does. It's really very empowering and very endearing. So
Thank
really,
you.
that's something really very incredible, Doctor. So moving on to your therapeutic approach, it's rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness. Also, the ACE method, ACE, which is
Mhm.
acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. So,
Mhm.
explain these methods. How do they work together to help individuals get unstuck?
Yeah. So that's a big question. And it's the preface of my whole book. So I will try my best because it's a book that has many pages,
Mhm.
over 200 pages that describe what you're talking about. But I'll just tell you the structure or format of my book because it kind of explains, where I'm coming from.
Mhm.
So I start out, talking about our physiology and neurocognition and the physiology of our brain, because we really need to know and understand our thinking process.
Mhm.
Because it really helps to understand, why we're in the positions we're in that lead us to this stuckness. So that's number one. Number two, I then continue with a chapter on values because my premise is that all of our actions, values are a guide to action.
Mhm.
So if we follow again, right, if we follow this kind of method, it allows us to have this guidebook, an understanding of what actions we want to take in order to live our best life and live the life we want. And
Right.
then I go into I dedicate 2 chapters to acceptance, 2 chapters to, compassion, two chapters to empowerment. The first part of each chapter, I talk about the barriers. What are the barriers? Why is it so difficult for us as humans? And by the way, this cuts across all people. It
Okay.
doesn't matter your race, religion, socioeconomic status, where you live, etc. It really does. It cuts across all humans. We all experience stuckness.
Yes.
So there's many, many barriers. There's social, cultural barriers. There's systemic value. Keep on saying values, barriers. There's personal, personality barriers. There's so many barriers that get in the way that lead us to a place of stuckness. And we need to understand that in order to see it when it happens, observe it, and also work through it. So that's the first chapter of each. And then the second one talks about then what is it and how can we integrate this into our life? I give, again, a lot of research to back up my ideas. I give a lot of exercises, experiential exercises, in order to help, each person integrate it. And then at the end, I give a guided meditation, which has a QR code, which you could, tab onto. And that allows you, to integrate this information because I believe in a mind body approach, and mindfulness. And I talk about that as well. Um, and I go through each acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. And where I'm coming from, this is a method, of living. I teach this to people of all different ages, all the way from, yeah, younger kids like high school age and even middle school, all the way through, older adulthood.
Mhm.
And it sets people up, right, to always be cognizant of their values and live the life they want. What's lovely is when I work with somebody who's on the younger side, they learn the lingo, they learn the methodology, and it's amazing because I see them, they come in and they're like, oh, today I leaned into my values and, I build my confidence in this way, and they'll say it. And it's so beautiful to
Yeah.
observe the transformation because I see it in their behaviors. I have this person, for example, that I work with, young adult, she's in college right now in the
Mhm.
United States. And, when I first started with her, she had severe social anxiety,
Mhm.
and it inhibited her in so many ways. It inhibited her obviously her interpersonal relationships, her socialization, and her
Mhm.
confidence. And she was very avoidant because a lot of anxiety unfortunately leads to avoidant behavior. And
Yes.
now, she's in her second year of college. And yesterday, when I was kind of online with her, she was so excited to report to me all the things she did, where she was challenging herself and where she was putting herself out there, even with having the fears that was, evidently coming up for her. And I saw, and she said to me, and I always like say to her, could you imagine like if backtrack when I first started working with you? And she's like, oh my goodness. She's like, I never, ever, ever would have done any of those things. There's no way I would ever even think about it. So it's just so beautiful to see the transformation and to see the progress, and it's going to set her up for the rest of her life. So, and I'm so proud. And I say, I said to her, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud to share, in these changes with you as a partner, as a collaborator, and I'm so honored that you give me the chance to help guide you and to kind of be here with you during this process. And it's just a very cohesion, and collaborative process. So it just brings me so much pleasure and reward, to see people living out, their best life. Yeah.
That is really, really, uh, it gives a sense of fulfillment and purpose to you, and it's really empowering what you're doing out there for, people,
Yeah.
irrespective of uh, any kind of issue. Great. So,
Mm.
as an adjunct faculty member at NYU teaching mindfulness practice, how do you
Mhm.
integrate mindfulness into your therapy sessions? And why is it such a critical tool for emotional well being?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I was ever asked that before. And I do a lot of podcasts. Um, So I love that question. And it's interesting that you bring that up because the class that I teach at NYU is how to integrate mindfulness into clinical practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I help practitioners, people who are working with clients, patients, how to integrate mindfulness. So I teach a 15-week course teaching practitioners how to do that. So again, I will be concise, but it gets weaved into kind of my practice. What I find, because our brains are wired, constantly and chronically, I'm going to say, to protect us from danger and discomfort, because that's how we're wired. It's a reptilian brain.
True.
You know, we're constantly in a position where we're protective and defensive. That's just kind of how we're wired as humans. And again, this cuts across any, wherever you live and whoever you are, it doesn't matter. Um, so, there's, again, taken also into, social culturally what we experience, right? Like this kind of era that we're in terms of productivity,
Yeah.
which I know in India, I know that it's the same type, it's that same type of progressive, I'm going to say, movement for productivity, for education, for moving upward and onward, it is. I know because I actually treat several Indian, clients. And I appreciate the motivation and the inspiration and the commitment. I see it. It's actually inspiring, I have to say. And again, I'm of course generalizing, but I'm saying this is what I see from at least the people I work with that live in India, or have family who are Indian and who are lineage in Indian culture. So we're on autopilot like 24/7, and again, our technology, if you think about it,
Mhm.
just increases that. Now, I have to tell you, I discovered this like last week, which like I'm so behind, but this AI and chat
Yeah.
T and whatever. Oh my God, my friend showed me like he did an excerpt in his blog, and
Mm.
it was completely from chat GPT. Like he didn't even write it. And it had references and everything. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, where that's great, don't get me wrong, because I'm like, wow, I was like floored that it could do that,
Yeah.
Oh, and then the other thing, which was astonishing. Oh my goodness, I went to an event last week Somebody died, and it was a luncheon, and their son-in-law said, "Oh, I have a song that's dedicated to my father-in-law," and played the song out, to the whole table. And I'm
Okay.
telling you, everybody was in tears because it was literally dedicated to him. His name was in the song.
Wow.
And then afterward, and the person who sang it, it was like the most beautiful lyrics, the beautiful like this singing voice and everything.
Uh,
And I was like, wow, like how much did you pay to get that done? Like, oh my goodness, like did you pay like a band or I don't know what you did? He was like, no, the
Nothing.
computer did that for me.
Exactly.
I was like, what? He was like,
Uh,
yeah. He's like,
that,
it's an app. It's an app. All you do is put in like what names and what sentiments you want in the song, and it creates it for you. I was like, oh my goodness. Like I was in
right.
shock because if you heard that song, I'm not even kidding, you'd think that it was literally like crafted like by a person, you know?
That.
So
Mhm.
yeah, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
I mean, to be honest, that doesn't, you know, give a kind of justice, especially when you are, in a funeral. That it's just a computer generated song.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It takes away from our creativity. It takes
Exactly.
away from our spontaneity. It takes away from everything. Like, although it's beautiful and wonderful and it's quick and helpful, and don't get me wrong, right? And by the way, all the kids are using it in school. Just saying. No, I know they are. They even have, by the way, I have to tell you this because I'm just beside myself. They have some kind of app that you could filter it through this app so that it 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 doesn't allow it to identify that you've done it through chat GPT. Okay. So
Okay.
students have wind of this.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it is. I mean, I hear about all this because I'm on the other end, but which is horrible. Like kids are not learning. Actually, they're all doing this. By the way, they're all doing it. But anyway, going back to mindfulness. So my point is that it takes away from our processing and our thinking and everything. We're just kind of automated at this moment. Literally, we're automated and we're on autopilot. Everything we do. And there is no space between the thinking and the doing. We just go, go, go. And whereas, for example, if you're exercising your body and you want to build your bicep muscle, right, you would do bicep curls.
Yep.
With the brain, it's the opposite processes that needs to occur. So by resting the brain, that's how you build the muscle memory. Okay, not by, right? So when we create space between the thinking and the doing, right, we're creating the ability to be less impulsive, to be more mindful, to focus better. It increases our health. There's health benefits. I mean, I could go on and on. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of methodologically sound evidence-based research that shows the benefits of mindfulness practice. Besides that, because we have advanced technology today, which is so incredible, this is another incredible thing, is we have seen through MRIs that it actually increases the gray matter in our brain. It changes the structure of our brain. Now, there's nothing that changes the structure of our brain except for this. Okay. And why do we care about gray matter? Because gray matter depletes as we age. And
Yes.
that is what causes us to have loss of memory, focusing, and
Yeah.
etc. Okay. So again, I could sit here and go on and on and on and on about all the benefits. Everybody could look that up. I don't need to kind of preach to the choir, but it is so important. And for impulsive like behaviors, for addictions, for any kind of mental health challenges like anxiety, depression, overeating. I mean, any stuckness, it is absolutely critical, which we all have, like I said, for us to engage in mindfulness.
Hmm. That's quite an analysis, Doctor. Really, that's really great. Some great observations, and these this should be made more and more. People should be aware about it. Lovely. So before we wrap up, Doctor, given your experience with crisis teams, the Boys and Girls Club, and as a member of multiple mental health boards, what advice do you have for those looking to create a more compassionate, mindful community around mental health advocacy?
Wow. Mindful community about mental health. Wow. It's, I have to say there's so many things that need to be done that are not done. I'll give you another example. I actually went to my children's school. I have 4 kids, age 24 to 16, 3 boys and a girl. And I gave them a way to integrate social emotional learning and mindfulness into the curricula for free. For free. I want to underline that. And they told me that academics is more important and that there isn't enough time. Yeah. So we're teaching kids how to learn, right? But we're not teaching them how to live. That is very sad. Very sad. Because I see the kids that have emotional regulation issues, the kids that get stuck in their stuckness and spiral. I see, and I could go on and on. I see adults like that, many.
Yep. That is
Okay, so we could learn from today. We could learn trigonometry and geometry and bio and English and whatever else. But if we can't have social skills, we can't have, again, self-compassion skills. If we can have, interpersonal relationship skills, it's worth peanuts, literally. Because guess what? Those skills are such a critical part of everything that we do, whether it's being in positive interpersonal relationships with intimate partners, whether it's being in friendships, whether it's being in partnerships at work in your career. Okay. It cuts across all spectrums of our life. So we don't do enough as a society, and I'm saying that across the board, to integrate these skills and to teach people how to be more mindful in their lives, in their practice, in their like interpersonal relationships, and then in their actions. And it is such a multi-systemic issue that I find very challenging and very frustrating. And it's a fight of a millennia because I know that I've tried everything I could and nothing changes. So it makes me, I have to tell you, when I think about it, I well up with tears in my eyes because it makes me so incredibly sad because I see the result that has had on people that I work with. And it makes me really sad and disappointed.
That is absolutely true. And this is across as you said, across the board, in our culture also in India, if I talk about our school curriculum, they never taught us the social or life skills.
No,
In fact, parents also, because we were all taught and asked, expected to follow a particular norm, a process that you study, you get your grades, you get to go to a good college, you graduate well, you get a job, you get married, and that's it. But how do you
yes,
figure living through a single moment or maybe a single day, interacting with new people, understanding what is good and what is bad, and navigating through the complex situations of life? That was never ever taught.
that's
But
right. Or what's even more, what's also really important? Decision making.
exactly, exactly,
Like
exactly.
decision making, we make thousands and thousands of decisions every single day. We're not taught how to make decisions.
True. That is true.
Yeah.
But at least I believe that through podcasting and interacting with guests like you, and you helping people out there, at least our generation is paving a way
Oh,
for the upcoming generations
yeah.
to live a healthier, more fulfilling and mindful life.
Absolutely. It's so interesting as we were talking. I just have to say this because you kind of spurred my memory and my thoughts. As I was talking about my book, I sat here and I was thinking, that how frustrated I get sometimes because I really want to get it out to the public because I know I use this methodology with my patients and it's so incredibly helpful. And I said, you know what? I shouldn't have called it Ace Your Life because that's what the name of the book. I should have called it Stuckness. That's what I should have called it because I feel like that would have gotten maybe more attention to the book. So it's interesting. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could remarket this, but obviously I can't. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely, Doctor. This was a great conversation, and thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom on mindfulness, emotional empowerment, and personal transformation. And if our listeners want to get in touch with you, also get access to your book, Ace Your Life, Unleash Yourself Best, and Live the Life You Want, how they can do that.
So my website is the best place. It's my name, MichelleMaidenberg.com, which is with two L's, Michelle, and Maidenberg is Maidenberg. And on my website, there's a quiz you could take, which kind of helps you to figure out which category of stuckness you're in. My book is on there. My blogs. I'm a Psychology Today blogger. So I always, again, it's my content. I don't use Chat GPT, just saying. It's brand new content every month. I also have a guided meditation. You could subscribe to my YouTube channel. I create one and publish one every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of connect with me, and I'm always happy to help and to, and my book is available on any of the book sites, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, thrift stores, And again, I also recently did an audiobook, which I'm very excited about, and I actually narrated it. So if you're not into reading, which I know is challenging for some people, I also did the audiobook as well.
Lovely. That's lovely. We'll mention all the details in show notes.
Thank you.
And once again, thank you so much, Dr. Michelle.
You're welcome.
An absolute fantastic discussion on this crucial topic. And your work is an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Mindful Living podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes to connect with Dr. Michelle and also access her book, also in audio, and also her TED Talk for more insights on how to unleash your best self and live the life you want. Stay mindful, stay empowered, and until next time, keep living mindfully.